Tales by Ebby. It was a warm, starless night when Ada first heard the whispers. She sat outside her small hut, staring at the dusty road, her heart heavy with worry. Her family had always struggled, but now, things were worse than ever. They barely had enough food to eat, and no matter how hard Ada tried to help her mother sell things in the market, it never seemed to be enough. She wanted more. No, she needed more. As she sat there, lost in her thoughts, she heard voices coming from the nearby bushes. Ada crouched low, hiding behind a tree, listening closely. The voices belonged to two women, speaking in hushed tones about a powerful water spirit, known as Mummy Water. They said she could grant wishes, giving people all the riches and happiness they wanted, but only if they were willing to make a deal with her. Ada's heart raced. A water spirit who could make her rich. It sounded like a fairy tale, but Ada was desperate. Her family was suffering, and she had to do something. The next evening, with the woman's words still echoing in her mind, Ada sneaked out of her home and made her way to the river. The path was dark, and the sound of crickets filled the air, but she kept going, her feet barely making a sound as they hit the dirt road. When she arrived at the riverbank, the water was calm, reflecting the faint light of the moon. Ada took a deep breath and called out softly, "Mummy Water, are you here?" At first, nothing happened. Then, the water began to ripple, and a sweet melody filled the air. Ada's eyes widened as a figure slowly rose from the depths of the river. It was Mummy Water. She was more beautiful than anything Ada had ever seen. Her skin shimmered like the surface of the river, and her long, dark hair flowed like water around her. Her eyes glowed softly as she looked at Ada. "You called for me," Mummy Water whispered, her voice smooth and soft. "What do you want, child?" Ada swallowed hard, her mouth dry. I want to help my family. We have nothing. I want riches, I want a better life." Mummy Water smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "I can give you everything you wish for," she said, her eyes gleaming. "But nothing comes for free." Ada nodded, her heart beating fast. "What do you want from me?" "You must serve me," Mummy Water replied. "You will be my voice on land. You will help me grow my power, and in return, I will give you all the riches you desire." Ada hesitated. Serve Mummy Water? What did that mean? But then she thought of her family, of her mother's tired face, and her siblings who went to bed hungry every night. This was her only chance. "I'll do it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Mummy Water nodded and reached out, touching Ada's forehead with her cold fingers. A strange chill ran through Ada's body, and she felt as though something deep inside her had changed. "The deal is made," Mummy Water said, her voice echoing around them. "You will soon receive your first gift. Use it wisely." The next morning, Ada woke up to find a beautiful box sitting at the front of her hut. When she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside were sparkling beads, colorful and unlike anything she had ever seen before. They shimmered in the sunlight, glowing like magic. Without wasting time, Ada took the beads to the market, where she displayed them for sale. People gathered around, amazed at their beauty. Within hours, all the beads were sold, and Ada returned home with more money than she had ever seen in her life. Day after day, more boxes arrived, each one filled with more beautiful beads. Ada's business grew quickly, and soon she was the most popular bead seller in the entire village. Her family no longer struggled, they had everything they needed and more. But as Ada's wealth grew, strange things began to happen. Women who bought her beads started to behave oddly. Some of them would stand by the river for hours, staring at the water as though they were waiting for something. Others reported hearing whispers in their dreams, soft voices calling them to the river. Ada tried to ignore it. She had everything she had ever wanted, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. The women kept coming back for more beads, and every time they wore them, the strange behavior got worse. One night, as Ada lay in bed, she had a dream. She was standing at the riverbank, just like before, and Mummy Water rose from the water, her eyes glowing brightly. "You are doing well," Mummy Water said, her voice soothing. "But now, it is time for you to fulfill your promise." "What do you mean?" Ada asked, her heart pounding. "You must bring more women to the river," Mummy Water said. "They belong to me now. You will help me take them." Ada woke up in a cold sweat, her heart racing. She knew then that she had made a terrible mistake. Ada couldn't sleep after that dream. Her heart was heavy, and fear gnawed at her insides. The deal she had made with Mummy Water was no longer just about beads and riches, it was about people. The women who bought her beads, the same women who had been behaving strangely, were now in danger. And it was her fault. The next morning, Ada avoided the market. She sat quietly outside her hut, watching as her siblings played, their laughter ringing through the air. Her mother, now dressed in fine clothes, was happier than she had been in years. Everything seemed perfect on the outside, but Ada felt trapped, like a bird in a cage. As she sat there, her friend Chinyere came running towards her, excitement on her face. Ada, everyone is talking about you in the market. They say you have the most beautiful beads in all the villages around us. Ada shook her head, her stomach twisting with guilt. I don't think I will go today. Chinyere frowned, puzzled. But why? You're the richest girl in the village now. Your beads are magical, everyone says so. You should be proud. Magical. The word made Ada's blood run cold. She knew the truth behind those beads, but how could she explain it? How could she tell anyone what she had done? Just then, an elderly woman from the village, Meman Kechi, approached them. She had always been kind to Ada's family, often offering help when they needed it the most. But today, Meman Kechi's face was different, her eyes were clouded with worry. Ada, Meman Kechi said in a low voice, I need to talk to you. Ada stood up quickly, her heart racing. What is it, Mama? Meman Kechi glanced around, making sure no one was listening. There's something wrong with your beads. My granddaughter, Ada, bought some from you last week. Since then, she has been waking up in the middle of the night, walking to the river as if she is in a trance. And she is not the only one. I've heard other women talking. All of them say the same thing, they hear voices calling them to the water. Ada's hands trembled, and she felt her throat tighten. She had suspected something was wrong, but hearing it from Meman Kechi made it real. This wasn't just her imagination. The beads were cursed. I don't know what to do, Ada stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. You need to stop selling those beads, Meman Kechi said firmly. Something dark is at play here, child. This is not normal. Ada nodded slowly. She wanted to tell Meman Kechi everything about the deal with Mummy Water, the riches, and the terrible price that came with it, but fear held her back. If anyone found out, they would never forgive her. They might even drive her and her family out of the village. That night, Ada stayed up, pacing back and forth in her small room. She couldn't stop thinking about the women who were being drawn to the river. What did Mummy Water want with them? Why was she calling them? Ada had to find out before it was too late. The next day, she made a decision. She would go back to the river and confront Mummy Water. She couldn't let innocent people suffer because of the deal she had made. She had to break the curse, no matter the cost. As the sun began to set, Ada sneaked out of her house and made her way to the river. The path seemed darker than before, and the air was thick with tension. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to keep walking. When she reached the riverbank, the water was still, and the moonlight reflected off its surface. Ada took a deep breath and stepped closer to the edge. Mummy Water, she called out, her voice shaking. I need to speak with you. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the water began to stir, and Mummy Water emerged, her eyes glowing in the darkness. You have returned, Mummy Water said, her voice smooth and hypnotic. What is it you seek, child? Ada swallowed hard, her palms sweaty. I want to stop the deal. I can't do this anymore. The women, they're being drawn to the river, and I don't know why. Please, let them go. Mummy Water tilted her head, a cold smile playing on her lips. You made a promise, Ada. You are mine now. The women are part of the deal. They will come to me, and you will continue to serve. No. Ada cried, her voice desperate. I didn't know this would happen. I didn't know you would hurt them. Mummy Water's smile faded, and her eyes darkened. You knew the price, child. Nothing comes without sacrifice. You wanted riches, and now you must give me what I desire. Ada's heart sank. She had made a terrible mistake, and now there was no turning back. "Is there nothing I can do?" she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. Mummy Water watched her silently for a moment, then spoke. "There is one way. But it will not be easy." "What is it?" Ada asked, her voice trembling. "You must bring me a willing soul," Mummy Water said. "Someone who will take your place in the deal. Only then will I release you." Ada's breath caught in her throat. A willing soul? How could she ask someone to do that? How could she condemn someone else to the same fate? But as she stood there, staring into Mummy Water's cold eyes, she realized she had no choice. Ada's mind raced as she tried to think of someone who could replace her. She knew she had to find a way out of the deal with Mummy Water, but asking someone to take her place was a daunting and horrifying thought. The next day, Ada stayed in her hut, trying to come up with a plan. She knew she had to act quickly, but she also needed to be careful. If word got out about the deal, it could cause panic and distrust among the villagers. As Ada sat, lost in thought, a knock on her door startled her. It was her childhood friend, Nena, who had come to visit. "Ada, what's wrong?" Nena asked, noticing the worry on Ada's face. "You've been so distant lately. Is there something you need to tell me?" Ada hesitated, unsure of how to explain everything. But she could see the concern in Nena's eyes and knew she couldn't keep hiding the truth. After a moment of silence, she took a deep breath and decided to confide in her friend. "Nena," Ada began, her voice shaking, "there's something I need to tell you. It's about the beads I've been selling. They are cursed. I made a deal with Mummy Water, and now, the women who buy the beads are being drawn to the river. I need to find someone to take my place, or the curse will continue." Nena's eyes widened in shock. "A deal with Mummy Water? But why would you do something like that?" "I was desperate," Ada admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted to help my family. But now, I've made things worse. I need to find a way to fix this, but I don't know who to ask." Nena looked at her friend with a mix of sympathy and fear. "This is serious, Ada. You're in real danger, and so are the others. But asking someone to take your place is wrong. Is there any other way?" Ada shook her head. "Mummy Water said there is no other way. I have to find a willing soul or continue to serve." Nena thought for a moment, then took Ada's hand. "Maybe we can find another solution. Let's talk to Mama Nkechi. She's wise and knows about many things. Perhaps she can help us find a way to break the curse without causing more harm." Desperate for a solution, Ada agreed, and the two friends set off to find Mama Nkechi. They found her sitting outside her home, deep in thought. Ada explained the situation, and Mama Nkechi listened carefully. "This is a grave matter," Mama Nkechi said thoughtfully. "A deal with Mummy Water is not something to be taken lightly. But there are ancient rituals and prayers that might help. We need to consult the elders and the village priest." Ada and Nena agreed to do whatever it took to find a solution. Mama Nkechi led them to the village priest, an elderly man named Father Emmanuel, who was known for his knowledge of spiritual matters. Father Emmanuel listened to the story with grave concern. "Breaking a deal with Mummy Water is not simple," he said. "We need to gather the elders and perform a powerful ritual to cleanse the beads and break the curse." The plan was set. The next evening, the village gathered at the riverbank. Ada, Nena, Mama Nkechi, and Father Emmanuel prepared for the ritual. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers formed a circle around the river. Father Emmanuel led the prayers, his voice steady and strong. The ritual began, and the river seemed to respond, the water churning and glowing with an eerie light. Ada stood at the edge of the circle, her heart pounding. She could feel the presence of Mummy Water, watching and waiting. The tension was palpable as the ritual continued. Ada glanced at Nena, who gave her a reassuring nod. They were in this together. Suddenly, the water in the river began to swirl violently, and a figure began to emerge from its depths. It was Mummy Water, her eyes blazing with anger. "You dare challenge me?" Mummy Water hissed, her voice echoing through the night. "You think you can break the deal so easily?" Father Emmanuel raised his hands, chanting louder. "In the name of God, We command you to release your hold on these people. Leave this place and never return. The air grew colder, and the water roared. Mummy Watter's form flickered and twisted, her anger palpable. Ada felt a powerful force pulling at her, but she held her ground, focusing on the ritual and the words of the prayers. The struggle between the ritual and Mummy Water continued, and Ada's resolve was tested. The outcome was uncertain, and the villagers watched with bated breath, hoping that the ritual would succeed and the curse would be lifted. As the ritual reached its climax, Mummy Water let out a final, furious scream. The water surged and then calmed, the eerie light fading away. The figure of Mummy Water vanished, and a profound silence settled over the river. Ada collapsed to her knees, exhausted and relieved. The ritual had been intense, and the battle had been fierce. She looked around at the villagers, who were beginning to cheer and embrace one another, their relief evident. But Ada knew that the battle was not entirely over. The curse had been challenged, but the consequences of her actions still lingered. She had to ensure that the beads were cleansed and that no one else was harmed. The villagers gathered around Ada, offering their support and gratitude. Memon Kechi and Father Emmanuel approached her, their faces weary but hopeful. "You have done well, Ada," Father Emmanuel said. "The ritual was powerful, and the curse has been confronted. But remember, the path to redemption is long and requires true repentance." Ada nodded, understanding the gravity of their words. She knew she had a lot of work ahead of her, but she was determined to make things right. The journey to mend the harm done and to seek forgiveness from those affected had just begun. And so, as the village celebrated the end of the immediate danger, Ada prepared for the next steps. She knew that the road to redemption would be challenging, but with the support of her friends and the guidance of the elders, she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the village celebrated, Ada felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Though Mummy Water had been banished for now, Ada knew that the curse's effects would not disappear overnight. She had to be proactive in repairing the damage and ensuring the safety of her fellow villagers. The next morning, Ada and Nena went door to door, gathering the beads that had been sold and advising the villagers on what they had learned. They explained the situation and offered to help those who were affected by the curse. Many were frightened but grateful for the truth and the chance to cleanse themselves of the curse's influence. With Maman Ketch's guidance, Ada and Nena organized a communal cleansing ceremony. They worked with the village priest to perform a series of prayers and rituals to purify the beads and the people who had been touched by the curse. The ceremony took place at the riverbank, where the villagers gathered to participate in the ritual. As the weeks passed, Ada and Nena continued their efforts to help the villagers recover. They spoke at community gatherings, educating the people about the dangers of seeking quick solutions and the importance of faith and honesty. The village slowly began to heal, and trust was rebuilt. Ada also sought forgiveness from her family for the trouble she had caused. Her family, though initially hurt and disappointed, saw her genuine remorse and willingness to make amends. They supported her efforts and helped her in her mission to rectify the situation. One evening, as the village held a celebration to mark the end of the curse, Ada stood by the river, reflecting on everything that had happened. She felt a sense of peace knowing that she had faced the consequences of her actions and had taken steps to make things right. As the sun set and the festivities continued, Ada looked out over the river, grateful for the support she had received and hopeful for the future. Moral lessons. 1. The dangers of desperation. Ada's story illustrates how desperation can lead one to make poor decisions that have far-reaching consequences. Seeking quick fixes and shortcuts, especially through unethical means, often leads to more harm than good. This reflects the biblical teaching from Proverbs 14 verse 12, NIV, which says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." 2. The importance of redemption and making amends. The story emphasizes the need to seek redemption and make amends for one's mistakes. True repentance involves not only feeling sorry but also taking concrete steps to right the wrongs committed. This mirrors the teachings of Luke 19 verse 8, NIV, where Zacchaeus says, "But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, 'Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount.'" 3. The power of community support and faith. Ada's journey underscores the importance of community and faith in overcoming challenges. The support from her friend Nena, the guidance from Mama Nkechi and Father Emmanuel, and the collective effort of the village were crucial in addressing the curse. This is akin to Galatians 6 verse 2, NIV, which states, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." Ada's experience teaches that while desperation can lead to mistakes, redemption is possible through sincere repentance and collective effort. With faith and community support, individuals can overcome challenges and restore what was lost.